morning, team. It is Tuesday, October 13th, and we're excited to have you with us. I'm Amy Core, and I'm joined by Kevin Van Eck, and we are live out of the Arlington Heights office. So grab your cup, and let's jump into another episode of Coffee with Amy and Kevin.
Yes, good morning, Amy. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I hope you've got your mug full of coffee today. It's a beautiful day. Today, we have actually got two segments for you. And continuing upon the theme of love yourself, as we go through the It's All About Love program, we're really today going to be focusing on financial security. So the two segments we have, first, we brought in a financial expert, someone that's been working with agents for decades in terms of financial planning and financial security. And the second segment, we're actually going to give you takeaways, things you can do immediately in terms of getting on the path or continuing on the path to your own financial security.
Thanks, Kevin. Yes, we're really excited to have Marc here with us this morning. So Marc, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. Good morning, everybody.
So I know that you're a pretty common name in real estate. Many of our agents out there may know of you, but I wanted you to give us the 90-second story of Marc, your career and your history in working with clients, but specifically your experience with real estate agents.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me today. It's a real honor to be here. For over 3 decades, our job very specifically has been to make sure that agents' financial security is set. Every decision supports that or we just don't do it. And we work a fiduciary model, which means every decision's in the agent's best interest with it. Our belief in today's environment is that our job isn't to do anything other than simply to quarterback exactly what a person's looking for with reference to an outcome of an amazing career in the real estate business. We're very fortunate. We're local. We're in Northbrook. We have 25 support staff here. We have another 100 people around the United States. And our whole focus is simply just to make sure that agents' financial security is set. It's just that simple. Every decision supports those promises.
That's great. And you talked about, how big your team is. Over the last number of years, I mean, how many agents, if you could enumerate, how many agents you're currently working with, helping with, what does that look like?
So on a personal basis, through our organization just in Chicago that we service in Chicago, it's a little over 3,200 agents in the Chicagoland area, Wisconsin, Chicago, and Indiana, those 3 states.
Very impressive. So as you've worked with these agents over the years, we know it, every agent knows it, we struggle with our own finances. We struggle with financial security. And so why do you think that is? Why is that a consistent thread among agents?
It's a great question. And I think if you go back to when we started, in the late 80s, one of the things that we couldn't really answer was why was that? And it became pretty apparent, the more people that we dealt with, that agents, and you ask yourself this is a question for yourself, have a tendency to take care of everyone except themselves. And they become last on the totem pole. They could have great intentions to do things. And I think what you guys are doing here is amazing. They have great intentions, but if the phone rings, everything else goes out the window for it. And so what we found is in order to be supportive for realtors, you need to have a back office of constant backup of follow-ups to make sure that their stuff didn't fall through their cracks. No different than they're the quarterback for any time someone buys or sells a piece of real estate. And we really kind of looked at our jobs to be the same thing, just with a different focus on them rather than just on their clients.
So let's take a look at the typical agent. So they call you or they call your partners. How do you or your team, how do you assess the agent's needs? How do you break that down for them?
Well, I think understanding the art of what connection really is connection isn't about having things in common with people. Connection is a belief system and seeing who it attracts. So there are just certain people that say, hey, listen, I just need this product or this product. It's probably not going to get the outcome that we look at. So about 15 years ago, we really coined a phrase of looking at the outcome that you want and then working things backwards in order to support it. And by doing it that way, there's never a discussion about a product because the product simply should support the belief system and not define it. And what we found with a lot of realtors is they get sold things in order to make things easy and simple. Hey, you should purchase this. This is a good deal. It has nothing to do with what their belief system is. But once we spend time with them to find out exactly the outcome that they're looking for, then it's pretty easy to do every single detail or to stress the detail because that detail is going to support the outcome. Our belief is that fiduciaries, specifically financial advisors, shouldn't be there to invest your money. They should be there to get you retired. And the concept of having the ability to work because you want to rather than because you have to is something that is typically a very common belief of people in the real estate business, except sometimes they just wake up and it's unfortunately too late, of which I don't believe it's ever too late to start this. I don't care what your age is.
So that's a good segue into a question we have where if someone is joining the real estate industry, they're a brand new agent, maybe they did leave the corporate world or a different industry, what is the first step for them? What do they have to consider when it comes to financial security now as a realtor?
So a realtor isn't so much a realtor in today's environment. The IRS would deem them to be an independent contractor or sole proprietor in a lot of cases with it. And sole proprietors have very different business models than simply someone who's just selling real estate. If you take a look at the great realtors, whether it's in any of the states I mentioned, they all look at it as a business. So there's a couple things that are really important. If you're coming out of corporate America, you want to evaluate your COBRA costs versus what AT is. I think AT's the only company that actually has a fully insured group health insurance plan for their sales associates to see which one's better for you. And then really start taking a look and saying, listen, the best investment you can make right away is probably in your business. But as time goes on, making sure that you have some form of income protection coverage, some form of retirement plan, you're able to roll over 401ks into the At Properties program. There's all these things depending on what's important to an individual. But the beauty of this is that you have 25 well-trained people here to make sure that there's a checklist to make sure that things don't fall through the cracks, or at least the awareness is created. My grandmother was a big believer that unsolicited opinions were considered criticism in the brain, and you should proceed with extreme caution. Grandma's advice is typically 20/20. So our job isn't to tell people what to do. Our job is to lay out the value that we have to see if it supports what's important to you with it. So I just think picking up the phone call and making sure that you have someone that has 3 decades worth of experience here to make sure that you're making all the right things. And again, the beauty of it is At Properties picks up the cost of doing all this. There's no cost or obligation to talk with someone to walk through it. And I think as Amy brought on in the beginning, a typical real estate agent, it really isn't typical because everybody's different and they all look at things differently. And I think why we've done so well over the last 3 decades is that we treat everybody as an individual based on what's important to them. So that's the way we look at it.
So those are all really good points. And, I wanted to talk a little bit. I think it's so hard. I think the first step is always the hardest, right? Making the phone call and setting the appointment. That's sort of the biggest hurdle. But once they get there, when you're working with an agent, how do you set goals together? And, really what should be the goal? I mean, I know that earlier you had mentioned retirement. I mean, is that the major goal that you see for most agents right now? What are you seeing?
I think that's a great point. I think most people look at the fact that at some point they want to retire and not work. And unfortunately, corporate America is downsized a lot, but there are enormous benefits that independent contractors have that employees never have. One of them is you can put away almost $63,000 a year in retirement type plans, whereas a 401k is only $18,000. Things like long-term care would be deductible, or you could get group discounts on large volumes of business. I think the issue, Amy, is that each individual has their own objective, but if you put on a scale, health insurance would probably be pretty close to the top one, especially if they don't have it. But real close right behind it is, retirement. And our job is to make sure that you retire with 6 figures worth of income. And we want you to work because you want to, not because you have to in this scenario for it. So We've been very fortunate to retire over 450 of our clients with over $80,000 a year of guaranteed income for the rest of their life. And it's just very humbling to be part of it, to listen to the stories when people are there and they continue to work because they really love what they do rather than they have to pay the electric bill.
And I think that's such a great point, because I think that's such a great goal. I know Amy and I hear this all the time, and you hear it, where agents say things anecdotally where, I don't want to be showing properties until I'm 85. I don't want to be doing these number of things when I'm 75. And so I love that that's the goal. And you alluded to it just a moment ago, but we have a new program coming at App Properties. And so including, not only the financial program, but also technology. Could you touch on that for just a moment and tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. About a year ago, we started piloting a project, and we really looked at what both of you talked about before we even got on the phone is, where do agents really start with this? And I think the problem is that if you ask an agent where everything that they have is, it's a major undertaking for them to spend the time to do it because, again, they'll take care of everyone but themselves with it. We believe that the only way that it works with people in the real estate business is to make things so simple and easy that you only have to do it once and you never have to touch it again. So about a year ago, we had a dear client of ours who was a realtor, and to make a long story short, her husband passed away and left, his wife literally with Samsonite briefcases at 75 years old of unopened envelopes. And so it was, the undertaking was brutal to go through it. But when we were done doing the analysis for her, she says, there's got to be more than this. And I said, this is everything you gave me. I mean, we spent 3 days on this. And she says, there's got to be more. And I said, well, there's two notes here that I don't know what they are, but, we didn't throw them away. Do you know what these are? She said, she has no idea with it. And then one of my staff says, well, it looks like account numbers, but there's no name on it. And so I said, well, listen, my gut is that it's probably being sent electronically to your husband's email. Can you do me a favor and just open the email? And she said, I don't have his passcodes. And I said, great, let's go there and let's hit the reset. And her husband had put what they call a two-step notification on it, and which went to his cell phone, except his cell phone was canceled 2 weeks before I had gotten there. So it's forever lost. So our staff started calling around everywhere. And by the time we were done with it, Fidelity held 2 accounts for a little over $1 million. That quite honestly, had we not done this, it would have been into unclaimed assets with the state because there was really no way to find it. And I just said, there's got to be a better way. And so for the last year, we've obsessed with the ability of what we're going to bring out very shortly, which is called At One Click. And that means that anything, whether it's with us or not, it's irrelevant. We think it's that important of an issue. You'll be able to go to a site that we have housed for you where you can touch a button and every single thing that you have, your checking accounts, your credit cards, your 401ks, your IRAs, your investments, your real estate, your trust, your passports, any special documents, wills, Social Security analysis will all be done in one place. So I want you to imagine you touch a button and your whole world comes up. And then the additional things that just passed planning yesterday allows us to be able to pick apart where every single dollar that you spend your money goes. So now all the things that the three of us talked about ahead of time is just that easy, and we can show planning models and everything inside there. To us, we believe this will revolutionize the ability to make it easy and a simple experience to not only plan for retirement, but to be able to touch a button and be able to pull it up anywhere you want, including on your cell phone. It's something that's really been a pet project of ours, and we've tested it with a lot of people inside of that, and I'm so proud to hear that we've gotten 5-star reviews on it. It's really spectacular. So I'm so proud to be part of this going forward.
That's awesome. It's super exciting. I know when we've talked about it and what I've seen, it's going to be really helpful. But I think until that comes out, and for everyone watching, it's going to come out before the end of the year, so you'll have access to this. But in the meantime, if they did want to meet with you, talk with you or your team, How can they do that right now?
All you'd have to do is we have some great ways to do it. We understand that there's 4 generations in the marketplace today. There's Gen Y, baby boomers, millenniums, and Gen X. And they all have different frequencies on the way that they want to be dealt with. So you can get me by text, you can get me by email, you can get me by calling my office, or you can get, I think we're going to set up a Calendly where you can just touch a button and in less than 18 seconds. It's that simple because, we look at the outcome of the easy experience. You can set up an appointment right with me, and I will call you at the time and place that you want to, again, create a very easy experience for yourself with it. By the way, one other thing I want to bring out, what's the cost to have this kind of technology for ATS, not only sales associates, but employees? And I'm very proud to say that there will be 0.0 cost or obligation for any of that matter to use any of these pieces of technology. This is part of your core benefits that you're now going to have access to. And I'm so proud and excited to be able to offer this at no cost to anybody that wants to use it.
Yeah, this is really exciting, a big game changer because, finances is such an important thing for all of us to really, be constantly thinking about. But I do know, the reality of it is that so many of us feel embarrassed or really sort of insecure about our financial situation, or we fear, what is going to be coming of the future. So can you tell us why we shouldn't be afraid and why we should really be embracing our financial situation and working to get it in a better place?
So rather than answer it, let me give you an example of it. I had a woman that was in the western suburbs who I'd known for years. And she finally came up to me and she said, listen, I've been so embarrassed to talk to you, but I don't know what else to do. I'm 60 years old. I looked at my Social Security. It's $450 a month. I'm not married. And I'm like, listen, there's no judgment here. I'm on your team. What do you want? She goes, I want to retire with $70,000 a year. I said, well, I don't understand how your Social Security can be so low when you're constantly between $200,000 and $300,000 a year. So I got a hold of her taxes, and her accountant had written off everything, made her an S corporation, and only paid her $25,000 a year in salary. Well, that's all she's going to get her Social Security off of. And I said, it wouldn't be difficult for us to get it from $400 a month to $4,000 a month by doing a couple things, but I need to get your accountant on the phone. And accountants, again, and I love working with accountants, but this one felt that, hey, listen, we're going to pay lower taxes. I said, she's not taking the money and doing anything with it. She's spending it. And we're not going to have anything left. And he says, what do you propose? And I said, let's turn her into a sole proprietor and let's raise her salary. And if we do things correct, her Social Security will go from $450 a month to almost $4,000 a month with her income. We just have to pay max Social Security. And he's like, well, I didn't think about that, but it's probably a pretty good idea. So we believe that, again, looking at the outcome and working it backwards is the most important thing. Taxes, paying the least amount of taxes is important, but I want you to understand that at some point there's diminishing return with it. So I'm very proud to say that after 9 years of hard work, she's now going to receive a little over $90,000 a year. And this is a lady that was 60 years old when we started with her. So nobody should ever feel ashamed at all. That's not what we're here for. We're here to support you with things. And it doesn't matter if you're 10 or 70, there are things that we can do. But the sooner that we address these things, the less problematic they become. But I do want to let everybody know that there is nothing other than just creating the awareness to support what's important to you. And you never, ever have to feel that way. As I said earlier, I'm a fiduciary, which means that everything is 100% super confidential. It would violate my fiduciary relationship to even mention anything to anybody else. But more importantly, you can rest that everything will be done in your best interest under the ACT planning model, which is something I'm very proud to be part of.
It's really great. Thank you, Marc. Before we let Marc go and move on to the second part of our segment, just want to make sure there was a button that popped up earlier at the bottom of your screen where Marc was talking about how to get in touch. That button is here again. So if you touch that button, you're going to be able to schedule a call, a meeting with Marc. And please take the time to do that. As he was just talking about, there's no judgment. And I sort of equate this to driving around for 6 months with the check light on, with the check engine light on, right? A lot of times, some of us maybe drive around 6, 12 months with the check engine light on. If you know internally that you have a check engine light on in terms of your financial security, it's time to do something. And rest assured that it's not going to be a situation that you should be fearful of, embarrassed of. We're all in different situations in life, but as Marc said, taking the reins now in terms of where you are is only going to lead to a better future. So, Marc, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. What an honor to be here, and thank you for creating a great show like this.
So in today's segment, Kevin and I also wanted to talk about things you can be doing right now to create wealth for you tomorrow. So we're really excited, but we've got 5 great things that we can share with you today. And these are actually things that you can jump off of Coffee with Amy and Kevin and start looking into. So Kevin's going to tell us about the first one.
That's right. The first tip or the first takeaway, the first thing you can do right now is take a look at what your subscriptions are. And when we talk about subscriptions, we're talking about things that you're paying for monthly. And how does this happen? We know we sign up for something, we put in our credit card, or we apply, or we start a free trial on something, and we never end it. And a lot of times these are things we're not using, things that like gym memberships, perhaps, apps on our phones, also streaming services. You know, a lot of us, I was just talking with someone the other day who has Hulu, they have Amazon, they have Netflix, and then within Amazon, they have HBO and Showtime. And at the end of the day, they're paying nearly $150 on top of the Comcast cable they have. And I asked them how often they're watching Hulu and Netflix and Amazon. And they said nearly never. They watch Netflix, but not the other two. So the point being, take an assessment of what you have in terms of subscriptions that are on auto pay. Really take the time, just grab 1 month and take a look at your statement to see what you are being charged. There are easy ways to do this. If you go into your phone and you're curious about app subscriptions, now within your Apple ID, if you have an iPhone, you can click in your settings and view all of the subscriptions that are being billed through your Apple ID. That's number one. Number two, there are apps out there that will also monitor your financial statements and watch for recurring costs. And one of them is called Trim, and it's something I have myself, where it points out any recurring subscriptions that I have to make sure that I actually want to keep them. Because again, as the years go by, this cost increase. If you're not using it, what's the point? And this is a good way, when you add it up, to save potentially a lot of money that you didn't realize was going out the door.
That's such great advice, Kevin. And if all of you have kids out there, it's a great way for you to track any of the apps that they maybe have downloaded on some of your family devices. I'm speaking from experience and knowing that there is many dollars out there that were spent on random apps. So make sure to check it out. The second thing that I want to talk about is being able to lower your credit card interest rate. So that's really critical. We all probably are using credit cards right now. And my first suggestion to you would be to reach out to your credit card companies directly. If you are a good customer, they're going to want to keep you. And if you let them know that you really want to take a look at your credit card rate to see if they can do something with it, odds are they're going to do something to reduce that rate and keep you as a happy customer. So check that out. The second option, and we actually have experienced this ourselves a couple of years ago, we had a couple of random credit cards that we were trying to wrap up and consolidate. So we actually took an unsecured line of credit. It wasn't too much, but it covered the cards. And what this did is it consolidated all of our credit card payments into one amount. And that actual monthly payment for that unsecured loan was much lower than what we were paying individually for all of these credit cards, because those interest rates were much higher. So take a look at some options for credit cards and making sure that you have an opportunity to be able to pay off the actual amount instead of paying constantly into the high interest rates. The second thing, or actually the third thing that I want to hit on, is talking about lowering your mortgage rate. Now, I know for a lot of us that usually means, oh, I have to think about refinancing. Not necessarily. Just recently, actually about a month ago, another agent that I was talking to mentioned that her mortgage company actually reached out to her and suggested that they would reduce her monthly mortgage payment. They were going to actually reduce her interest rate. And they did this proactively because she's been a great customer. She's paid on time for years and years. So I actually proactively called our lender and I said, I don't want to refinance, but I am interested in looking at whether or not you can reduce our current interest rate. And sure enough, they were able to reduce our interest rate, and we are now saving $500 a month in our mortgage payments. And it didn't take any paperwork. We didn't have to show credit because they already had us as a client. We just needed to sign off onto the new mortgage that they adjusted us to. But it was a great way to be able to save some really substantial money every month, and it was really easy to do. So if you do have or are in a loan right now, I would suggest reaching out to your lender and just proactively asking them if they will work with you because rates have adjusted.
That's such a great tip because, Amy, until you mentioned that, I had not heard of that or did not know that it was so easy and that lenders would actually do that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really easy to do. And I mean, I didn't know. And what I did say is I was shopping around, but I didn't really want to leave them if I didn't have to. And at the end of the day, you know, they're going to want to keep a customer. And with it being so competitive in the lending landscape right now, I really think it's worthwhile for anybody to make that phone call. It certainly doesn't hurt. And it's in the, you know, the lender's best interest to try and work with you.
Right. That's awesome. Great tips. For number 4, the tip is near and dear to my heart. And if you watched the Ninja episode on Thursday, you know that I'm trying to lose weight. This one fits directly into that in terms of how much you order out. Because a lot of times, if it's through an app or different things, different choices we make, we're spending a lot of money on eating and dining out. And sometimes we don't even realize it. A good example of this is Starbucks. We all have a Starbucks app. And here's the thing, we don't even realize it, right? So in a typical 30-day month, if we are spending $6 a day on Starbucks, that's $180. If we turn it into a treat, it's going to be far less of an expense each month. And you're also going to notice significant savings in terms of the money that's in your account. So take a look at it. One way to do this, and we'll talk about this again at the end of the year, is to make sure that you look at your year-end financial statement from your credit cards. It's very interesting because most credit cards now break it up into different sections where they tell you how much you spent on travel, how much you spent on food and dining out, et cetera. And this is where personal experience keys in for me, where the previous year I had looked at the way they broke it out and the amount of money I was spending on dining out and things like Starbucks and whatnot, it was exorbitant. And I immediately made a change. And it was very impactful because, again, if you're spending something daily, you don't realize it. But when you look at the overall impact over a 12-month period, it can be huge. And it could be something that impacts your financial security.
All right, moving on to our 5th one. This is my favorite, and Kevin makes fun of me, but it's something that I was told a couple of years ago, and I really believe it to be true. And it's about paying yourself first. You know, if you don't take the time out of each of your commission checks, even if it's just a small amount, even if it's $100, $200, and you put it into some sort of savings or investment account for yourself, you're paying that out first before you're paying your bills or doing all of the other things that we normally do in a month. And somehow all of a sudden our money is gone. So, you know, really consider making sure that you are a priority and you choose to pay yourself in some fashion. And the beauty of it is you can even have it set up so that for all of your commissions, if you want a certain amount going into a separate account, you can set that up. So it is automatically done. It's either a percentage or a flat amount each time, but make sure to do that. It's important to pay yourself. The other thing that's really important is to always start putting money aside for your taxes. You know, those are the 2 things that I think are so important. You've got to take care of yourself and then be ready at quarter's end or year end to pay the IRS.
So thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for joining us on another great Tuesday. Coffee with Amy and Kevin. We hope you have a wonderful day.
Bye guys. We'll see you soon. Have a good one.
And really quickly, just so you know, we are not licensed financial advisors.
Just 2 great people that like to have coffee with you on Tuesdays.